In this first video, I want to focus on the differences between traditional B2B marketing and B2B marketing in the crypto/Web3 space, right? There's a lot of differences, and if you don't understand these as a marketer or as a founder, they can lead to a lot of pain. The first key piece is that trust and awareness is everything. In this space, you have a lot of people trying to steal your private keys, hack into your protocol. So what that means is that in general, people are a bit skeptical of cold outreach or somebody they don't know that comes in and is reaching out to them. Another key aspect of this is the industry is still quite small, right? There's not that many businesses in the space. It's still kind of a pretty small circle. And the industry also loves conferences. This trust factor also makes it where people really hang out with other crypto people. It's kind of more of an insular industry because of how niche it is, right? Because of all of these factors, what that means essentially is that branding and awareness are actually really important. So you actually want to be thinking about how can you constantly build trust and build awareness, and your brand actually matters, right? In the traditional space, and I come from a traditional B2B background, I sold a 7-figure marketing agency where I was selling 30K a month contracts. I was also involved with a lot of SaaS companies. My director of ops was the agency that did CrowdStrike's growth, and they got acquired for 400 million. So he also has had a lot of experience. What is different about that space, about the traditional space versus this space, is that even as a super small startup, brand and awareness are important. Because the space is so small, it doesn't take a lot to become well known. While in traditional marketing, I would just focus on direct response like paid ads or cold outreach to really get traction. In this space, I think, yes, you do use those pieces, but it is important to understand that it's pretty easy to get well known in this space with a little bit of marketing or a little bit of smart growth hacking. That's also why top of funnel awareness is really important. So being on X, being at the conferences, doing events there, being on LinkedIn, they're all extremely important. Now, the second key piece is that relationships are everything. So you should think about that when doing your marketing. Your marketing's job is to facilitate relationship building. You almost want to think of your marketing department as warming everybody up so that you as a founder or your BD team can come in and build that relationship to a deeper level. Again, this comes back to, this is a space where there's a lot of distrust of strangers because of how many scammers/hackers there are. You really want to make sure relationships are front, key, and center. And this is also why X Spaces are so important in this space, because they allow you to be co-hosting or speaking with a few other people and get to know them and basically are the first touch point. Now, because relationships are so important, you will get a lot of your leads from referrals or introductions. It's also important to have a good referral program set up in the space because that can really incentivize people to go out there and do your BD for you. I don't think I've ever been in a space where referrals are as big as they are here. There are a lot of other spaces, a lot of other industries where yes, it's important to have a brand, but in this space, I see so much business happen through referrals. Especially, if you're selling a B2B product, a lot of these startups, they're going to be funded by certain investors. They're going to have certain service providers. The first thing they go to when they need to solve something is to go to their investor, be like, hey, do you know a good growth agency? Hey, do you know a good SaaS for this particular problem I have? Do you know a great analytics provider? Or they go to an existing service provider, and this is how a lot of business happens. You want to make sure you have a good referral program. I consider that as part of kind of like your marketing stack. The last piece of advice that I want to really caveat, yes, relationships are everything, and yes, referrals will be key, but you still need to be a closer, right? In this space, you really want to make sure you are actually out there making deals happen and closing them, and that means being able to dig into pain points, figure out what their objections are, having good, strong follow-ups, following good sales best practices. As a founder, one thing you need to keep in mind is there are a lot of BD networkers in the space that can get you a lot of introductions and can warm people up, but a networker is not a closer, right? There are a lot of BD people in the space who just suck at closing. So either you're going to close yourself or you're going to find a BD person that actually knows how to close, right? So that's just a caveat that I want to really keep in mind here. And then as a founder, your job should be to make sure that initially you're leading sales, right? Founder-led sales are very powerful initially. And then once you have those closed deals and you have a sales process, that's when you can bring in people to help you. Just keep in mind that you actually need to be closing deals. Everybody's willing to do a partnership or talk to you, but the actual conversion rate is quite low. The real product market fit, are people willing to pay for your B2B product? If they're not willing to pay for it, or if you're doing free services or free trials, then usually that's a bad sign, right? Like even if it's a token, like small amount of money that they're giving you, that still shows like buying intent. I see a lot of founders in the space that don't seem to get that, and then it kind of sucks X a few years down the line when their business shuts down, they have to let go of their team because of just not understanding that traction is really determined by revenue and people willing to pay, and not really by people who are willing to use it for free. The second big difference is that X/Twitter is a huge channel in the space, especially in B2B, right? Like people think that, oh yeah, B2B, I should be on LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn is still great, but you really do want to be on Twitter/X. The reason for that is everybody in the space is on there. That's where people are essentially, kind of spending their time. That's how they keep up to date with the space. Obviously, people using Telegram to communicate. There's some Telegram groups as well. There's Discord, but X is really where I think a lot of business happens. To a smaller degree, Farcaster, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem, is also where a lot of founders are. So that's also a great channel, and you can kind of repurpose your content from X for that. This is really important to understand because in traditional B2B, X is probably like way down the bottom of your list of channels to try. But in this space, it's like, yeah, your number one channel. You're gonna have to dedicate a lot of time and resources to your X strategy. And it does work for B2B because you kind of, like I said, awareness is really essential. If you're able to create that awareness, then you're able to get a lot of interest from projects. Now, as a founder, you do want to be on X as much as possible. I think founder-led marketing is pretty key in the space. Just get used to being on there. I'll go much deeper into X best practices in this video series, but just keep in mind, it's going to be a big channel for you. In this video series, I'm kind of focusing a little bit more on B2B service providers that are a little bit more traditional, but a lot of this advice still applies if you're a B2B protocol. So let's talk about community. In crypto, community is everything. And if you have a token, your community is going to be a lot of retail users, people who believe in what you're doing, they're interested in what you're building, and they see some sort of potential financial upside to engaging with you. So that's one side of it. And if you're a token-based project, you absolutely need to be building community from day one, and super key to do that. And then the second key piece is, even if you're a traditional SaaS B2B that's charging in fiat and you don't really need a retail community, there are still a lot of cool activation/hacks you can do with community building. So I think the best example of this is Safari. They're a Web3 B2B SaaS focused on marketing tech, and they built this whole Safari growth cohort where they essentially have an 8-week program, and growth leaders from the space come in, they engage, they're part of the cohort, and that's been working really well for them because everybody wants to be part of Safari. People put it in their LinkedIn bio, and they're essentially curating a community of people who are into marketing, who are their customers. So think about that when you're approaching your marketing strategy. Maybe, for example, if you're selling to product managers in the space, or if you're selling to CTOs, you could create some sort of community or tribe around that, where you have seminars or you have content, or where people can come in and speak to each other, essentially have maybe weekly Zoom calls and just off the record share what's working for them. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Is this space is one where if you can create some sort of exclusive community, or can even do a soulbound token, etc., people would dig that up like crazy here. Last piece is partnerships. So this is something a traditional marketer coming to the space is always blown away by. It's like there's so many partnerships that don't really mean anything. Everybody's willing to do them because everybody likes tapping to each other's audiences. So just keep in mind that there's like actual commercial deals, and then there's partnerships that are more often co-marketing partnerships. You want to use the latter, like co-marketing partnerships, for actually growing your awareness and growing your profile, but that's not usually going to lead to business. And then there's like actual real commercial integration. So there's almost 2 tiers of it, and you want to be making sure when you have a commercial integration deal, you're very clear that this is a commercial integration deal, and use that in your marketing as well. Create case studies, do the typical B2B marketing playbook. But also you can do tons of other styles of partnerships where it can be much broader. One thing I've seen is building out a gaming alliance or an AI alliance, right? Like there's all kinds of things you can do there where you can basically say that they're joining your group of protocols that are working towards solving a certain problem, and then you guys do a monthly call, etc. So there can be like a lower touch, like lower compliance style of partnership that makes it easy for you to go out there and get a lot of attention, and people say yes because they're also getting attention. And then there's like actual commercial integration. So you want to keep that in mind, and keep that in mind that if people say they want to partner in some sort of way, it doesn't really often mean much. Yeah, guys, that's my essentially video on how Web3 B2B is different than Web2. Kind of went over channel differences, psychological differences in terms of how people think, and how much more important branding is in the space versus the traditional space. Like branding and awareness actually will help you close a ton more deals here. Maybe going full cold outreach and paid PPC is not going to get you the best bucks versus compared to throwing an event and doing it strategically and smart. Thanks for watching this video. I'll have plenty more videos coming out for you, so make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and comment below if you have a question. Would love to hear your thoughts as well.